This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. I want to keep everybody out there updated on what we can expect to see in the sky as we move forward, because if we watch the propaganda, we will see exactly what they're planning. And what they're planning is to create more simulations in the sky. They are clearly running out test scale operations on Project Bluebeam. Northern Lights, again, are going to be visible in 2 weeks over in the UK. We just saw the test run that they did. And what's funny about some of the articles that are out there is they're trying to explain why we're going to see more aurora lights in the sky all of a sudden. But they're not going to be able to tell us exactly when, of course. But just expect to see it. Expect it to be the new normal as the government continues to test on a large scale, preparing for Project Bluebeam, because that's really what it is, right? There's the article that's out there. Northern Lights might be visible once more in the next 2 weeks. And in this article, it says flat out, and the good news for anyone who missed it, because remember, they always are playing down to the dumbed down sheeple who are more amazed by what they're seeing or more entertained by the light show than they are suspicious of what is really going on. So they treat them like toddlers, which in essence is what most of these people are. We're living among many, many adults that behave as children, but again, they're so narcissistic in their behavior that they refuse to see that. You're dealing with, if you had a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old child and you tried to tell them something and they were undisciplined, they would act exactly the way that adults in today's world are reacting, throwing tantrums, telling you no, refusing to believe the truth. So they put articles like this out there, and then they talk to them like what they are, babies. And they say, and the good news for anyone who missed it is that the huge sunspot responsible for the stunning colors has rotated back towards the Earth, your weather has reported. So, it's just randomly rotating back. So everyone out there reads it like, oh, great. I missed it that night, but now there'll be another chance to see it, and I won't be suspicious of it, especially when it says in the next paragraph, no exact date has been given for the optimum time to see the Northern Lights once more, but the event is more likely due to the sun being at the peak of its 11-year cycle. At this point, the sun is approaching its solar maximum and pumping out increased radiation, right? Kind of like those big towers that are pumping out increased radiation day in and day out. They're actually simulating HAARP, so it's making it easier for them to do mass simulations in the sky. Now, what you're going to hear in the future is a lot of these sheeple, dumbed-down zombies that we live among just repeat what you heard in that paragraph. There's no explanation needed. They just say the sun is at its peak of its 11-year cycle. So that just goes right into their head. Then they see story after story after story, because there's many articles out there right now, including ones by Wired, that say, what's up with these crazy northern lights? Solar winds at 1,000,000 miles an hour and freaky magnetic turbulence are sparking some of the best light shows in centuries. And that's exactly how this works, right? Solar winds at 1,000,000 miles an hour, right? We're all talking about HAARP and how they have the ability to create these massive, massive solar winds. Or we could just flat out say what they're doing right now in America, which is creating tornado after tornado after tornado, wiping out large areas of the population, damaging their home, forcing them into FEMA camps, forcing them out of off of their property. And of course, you sit there and you look at it and it's absolutely frightening. But when you say something like this, solar winds at 1,000,000 miles an hour, freaky magnetic turbulence, so they go, oh, freaky, yeah, this is all freaky. But they say it's one of the best light shows in centuries, and they go, yeah, right? 1,000,000-mile-an-hour winds, don't worry about those radiation towers, don't worry about things like HAARP, which are government documented, where they can create these things, or like I showed you a few weeks ago, because, again, when the government comes out immediately and uses platforms like the USA Today to say, no, the government isn't creating the aurora lights using HAARP. All one has to do is just look up and see the articles that I was showing you where they've admitted that HAARP is running simulations to create artificial aurora events in the sky. So you should say, oh, they do have the ability to do it, right? Check. They have the ability to do it. So we know that they have the ability to do it. So let's get that out of our minds that it's some crazy notion that they can create it in the sky. In fact, even if you look up, governments have been running these simulations on smaller scales for a while, right? They do it out in the open, and then they tell you, well, we're just doing something. Like, here's an example in Hong Kong. They ran an example and a test run of the Aurora lights here, the Northern Lights, and they said, hey, they're running, the Northern Lights are going to be able to be seen in the sky in Hong Kong because of a special event. You know, maybe a casino was having a special grand opening, so they were going to be simulating the Northern Lights. Don't question how they're doing it. Don't question where they got the ability to actually do this. Just look up and drop your jaw like you're supposed to, like a good little sheeple, and be amazed as we run simulations in the sky so we could see how realistic it looks, how people respond, et cetera, et cetera. This was one that was just run in the last year or so in Hong Kong. And that doesn't look as realistic as they can be because that wasn't filmed on a high quality camera. But again, we've seen events like this outside of cities and casinos, etc., where people see it and instead of asking how they could do that, you know, where this technology came from, could they, more so than how can they do it, thinking to themselves, wow, this is so realistic. I wonder if it got into the wrong hands, could they really deceive people with this type of technology? Well, of course they can. And this is just Aurora lights. Just imagine when we actually see blue beam in action, which is what this is a simulation test for, right? So the original story I showed you, Northern Lights are going to be visible again in the next couple of weeks. And then you get these other stories at the same time. They're conditioning you to expect to see this in the sky. That way, when you see people like us warning you about what it really is, you've already been programmed to think that the auroras now in the sky suddenly is the new norm. Why? Because the media is telling you the aurora should be spectacular this summer, thanks to solar maximum. And that's all you need to hear. Because the 99.9%, let's just be real, 100% of the population doesn't know what a solar maximum is, and they shouldn't know because they make these things up and call them science when they flat out have the ability to do these things and manipulate the sky. They tell you that also, but they don't want you to connect the dots and put it together. So they just tell you it's a solar maximum. That way, when you hear any conspiracies out there, you're already trained to deflect and believe it's a solar maximum, even though you don't have a clue what it is, right? So here's the Wired article. Auroras filled much of the world's skies for several nights in mid-May as a historic geomagnetic storm coursed 100 kilometers above our heads. Being able to see auroras so deep into the tropics was possibly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So listen, it was once-in-a-lifetime experience, but there will almost certainly be more strong geomagnetic storms later this year, giving hope to aurora watchers around the world that more dazzling lights are possible in the near future. This is because we're quickly approaching solar maximum, the peak of our star's predictable 11-year cycle of activity. So let's just get this straight. We've never been able to see the Northern Lights over anywhere but Alaska, which happens to be where the only one out in the open they admit. There's HARP set up all around. In fact, there's mini HARP set up all around now in the form of 5G towers. But we have, HARP is known to be in Alaska. Everybody knows it's there. It's not hidden. You can look it up yourself, right? What's hidden is what they're really doing. But they tell us that HARP is in Alaska, where the Northern Lights are, and they say that HARP has the ability to create artificial aurora lights, right? Okay. Now, 10 years ago, if I told you could see the northern lights in, let's say, Idaho or Iowa, or let's go even further south, let's say Florida, because it appeared in Florida, you would say it's absolutely insane, right? You'd say that's not even possible. But now this once in a lifetime experience, now that all these towers are up, now we're going to see it all around the world in the near future. And you're not suspicious. You're not suspicious as to why 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years ago, that you never would have seen the aurora lights, you would never have seen the northern lights anywhere other than Alaska. Now, not only are you seeing it across America, you're seeing it in the UK, right? So start thinking to yourself, okay, they were running tests. Why? To create a simulation in the sky. Why were they doing it? Why? What were they trying to learn? Well, they tell you they were trying to learn about debris from the sky, all bull crap that these people eat up, right? Then, over the course of the last 5 years, these towers have popped up all around us, which have the ability to create things that you can't possibly imagine because you can't see frequencies with your own eyes, right? Your phone is not moving faster. Nobody, even the people who detest people like us the most, even the most trained sheeple zombie who's obsessed with their tech, will sit there and tell you that they have not noticed an increase in download speed since 5G has come around. And in fact, they haven't even been able to pass propaganda that will condition those people because all the propaganda out there for 6G is saying why 6G will show you results compared to what 5G did because they know that the data proved that those people didn't buy into any faster download speed. Now, what those people also didn't buy into is the truth of the matter of why those towers are up, the truth of the dangers of those towers and what they're doing to us, and of course, how those towers have the ability to not only cause us all radiation poison, but have the ability to shoot things up into the ionosphere, quote unquote, and cause northern lights if they want to. You might say, well, why would they want to cause it? Well, why wouldn't they want to create illusions and deceptions in the sky at the same time that the Vatican's coming out and telling you that they're going to be the do-all, end-all to let you know if there's something in the sky, if Mother Mary appears in the sky, they're going to let you know if it's real or not, right? Oh, I couldn't imagine why all of a sudden they're deciding that they want to make an announcement to prepare people for that while we're seeing the northern lights simulated across the entire Earth. So they'll tell you that it's an 11-year cycle, it's the new norm. It goes on to say the Great Aurora Show on May 10th was a result of 3 CMEs that surged out of the sun's atmosphere. It's too funny. And headed toward Earth. A CME is a collection of magnetized plasma ejected from the sun's exceptionally hot outer atmospheric layer. The corona. What a coincidence, right? The corona. I know another thing about corona. Unless you were born yesterday, everybody obviously knows, we're told about the corona, right, over the last couple of years, and then those towers went up at the same exact time. Crazy, right? So on May 10th, can't get into detail about that. Each successive CME moved a little faster than the one before it, allowing all 3 bursts of charged particles to merge before washing over the Earth's atmosphere. The combined energy of 3 CMEs hitting our planet at once unleashed an aurora show for the ages. And thankfully, if you missed it, there's more to come. The CMEs were associated with the active region 3664 collection of relatively cold and dark sunspots on the sun's surface that grew more than 15 times larger than the Earth itself. And this is what I love about this stuff, right? Because when you start studying propaganda, they put things out there. How many people, if you could ask 100 people, if you know, let's say you know 100 people, I doubt any of us do. I mean, most of I don't know 100 people. But if you knew 100 people, okay, if you asked them about the active region 3664, 0 of them will know about it. Right? This is how their propaganda works perfectly because they say things to you that make no sense, but they know that you don't know how to comprehend that. That's why they put it in the articles because then when you go, I don't know what that, they go, just leave it to the scientists. Leave it to them, right? Leave it to these people. Active region 3664, I don't know what that means. And anybody out there that's is out there saying that it's not science, they don't understand science, so they shouldn't question science. But what we do understand is deception. We do understand how the devil works. We do understand how psychopaths work and operate just by studying basic psychology. And what we can see with our own eyes is that the people who keep screaming science are all psychopaths. The people who keep telling us that it's science, like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye, these people are known by their fruits, and their fruits are rotten to the core. They're smiling at you while they lie to you, and their lies are so bad that they can't even keep up with their own lies. They just don't expect you to call them out on their lies. And if you do, they'll just silence you on the internet. But they know for a fact when they're on national TV, even if they get caught in a lie, the person asking them the questions who came out of the Tavistock Institute for Social Engineering will never follow up and say, wait, you said something different a week ago. Kind of like that whole thing that happened with the masks, right? The same guy we were taking as the authority figure told us that we in no way, shape, or form needed a mask, and then a week later changed his mind, and you never saw the media say, wait a minute, you just said we didn't need it. They just dropped the whole thing, because what they do is they get caught in lies all the time. They just don't expect you to catch them in lies. So they'll use things like active region 3664, sunspot, CME, corona from the sky, all these things that you're not supposed to understand. And then when they tell you this is why it's happening, you're supposed to believe it. So instead of just using common sense and saying, all right, let me think for a second. We've never seen the Northern Lights anywhere on the earth other than over in Alaska. Now we're seeing it all around the earth. So is this the first time that this 11-year cycle has occurred? Well, you would say, no, didn't it occur 11 years, right? Wasn't there another cycle that occurred? And they won't answer that question. Let's go, it's the 11-year cycle, bro. Stop asking questions. You don't get it. Come on. Come on, man. Go play Sonic the Hedgehog. Get out of here. Those stupid questions, right? And you'd say, well, even if that's true, I mean, I just saw articles out there that said this place called HARP was running artificial simulations so they could make these up in the sky last year. Actually, the end of last year and before that. And you go, oh, okay. So then the question just becomes, we're going to see more of these in the summer. Why are we going to see more, right? We're going to see more because they want to see on a large scale how far, how stretched, what spots, is it working everywhere? And they're documenting it. Because when they roll out Project Bluebeam, there cannot be a place on the earth that this is not visible in. And they're going to make sure through test runs, through constantly showing you the northern lights in the sky and telling you that it's just the sun having itself a good old time this summer, they're going to make sure that they're watching the data to see that if there's any spots that aren't functioning and make sure any tower is functioning so that they can make sure that when they do run this in real time and tell you that it's not the northern lights and the Vatican steps in and says this is an act of God in the sky, that they can deceive you. So that is why they're telling you now that suddenly in the first time in history, you could see the northern lights in the UK, you could see them wherever you want to see them. They'll be everywhere. And they talk to you like a child and tell you to be excited about it, not to be suspicious of it. That's all the propaganda is for. Propaganda that you're not supposed to understand. You're supposed to regurgitate something about an 11-year cycle, but you're not supposed to ask the question of why before in the history of humanity have we never seen the northern lights over all these places? Well, because you're too dumb to get science, okay? Just like you're too dumb to ask questions about putting poison in your body a few years ago and you were silenced if you did so. Same thing now. Don't ask questions. We'll just see the northern lights all summer, and your job is to smile, not ask questions, and certainly not to be suspicious of it because we told you not to be. So the articles are out there for everybody to just continue to get conditioned, right? It's the new norm. And now the more that we see it, people aren't going to be suspicious of the government creating and manipulating an event in the sky because they don't think that far ahead. They don't think, what if this type of technology got into wicked hands? But, like I keep telling you, if you talk to Democrats about Donald Trump in power, they're scared. They're like, oh my gosh, yes, the world's going to end. He's the worst, right? And Republicans, the same thing with Biden in power or Barrio Sartoro Obama in power, right? So why not everybody all together looking at what's going on in the world, feeling uneasy, feeling stressed out, feeling friction with your neighbors, with your relatives over politics that they're creating. Why not say, hey, if they're doing this at HARP and they're creating simulations in the sky, why not maybe think about who has control of this technology and just what could be done with it, right? While they're telling you to don't look up during the day at the geoengineering, but look up at night because you might see a UFO that we create in the sky that we can use to manipulate you into what we want to manipulate you into. And of course, we can come in at the end of the day and take away all human rights and say it's for the betterment of humanity, and then just say, all right, now all of a sudden the northern lights that we kept seeing in the sky, well, they're gone, but what's in the sky now is real. We promise you, trust us, believe us. They are preparing for a massive simulation, so be ready for it. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.